Slasher movies as we know them pretty much originated from Psycho in 1960, and then grew to somewhat of a phenomenon, picking up more steam through the 70s and then really peaking through the 80s. Now there were a couple of gems in the 90s, then after that, these movies, though some staying true to form, started to fail. The audiences started losing interest and basically the popularity was gone. But why? Well, the answer is pretty simple. No one can make a good one anymore. Today, we will talk about some of those reasons why. The slasher basically lost its edge, including sequels. I feel bad for new horror movie makers, especially those ones who make slashers, because all the interesting stuff has been taken. And the major amount of content in the slasher field today is either scraps left over from previous films, the same story rehashed with a different setting, or just a bloodbath that actually makes no sense. It has gotten so bad, in fact, lost footage movies have become a staple, and the jump scare has replaced suspense. Now we'll get more into that a little later. But anyhow, no story, no production, just complete laziness. And then everyone just started making reboots. Every horror fan in their right mind, though excited about seeing their favorite movie again with a modern twist, didn't really know what to expect. And the filmmakers just banked on the hope that the horror fan would spend their money by virtue of the title itself, which they did, but only to come out mostly disappointed and wary of spending money the next time. Audiences now are more tuned in and expect a lot more. And as a horror fan, I know that culture. I'm part of it. And a bad sequel or a reboot doesn't only sour that one movie, it causes fans to get wary of others as well. Viewership goes down, the money dries up, and the franchise is over. The filmmakers can't blame their failure on the budget either, which they often do. The old movies didn't have any money to spend. Halloween had a $300,000 budget, and much of that went to Donald Pleasant and good film equipment. Today, it is just bad movie making. It doesn't matter what a movie's about, characters count even in horror movies. And if there's some kind of character structure and a little development, you're on the right track. Not all movies have to be character studies like a Tarantino film, but a little bit would be nice. And a classic slasher film is not any different. Kills don't mean a damn thing if you don't give a shit. The classic slasher had characters with enough development for the audience to feel just a little if and when these characters were killed. And dialogue led to some of that development. Now, crappy dialogue and crappy character development eventually turns the audience off and turns an otherwise good movie bad. Even sequels with awesome originals are included in that category. With that being said, as the slasher progressed, yes, many sequels included, I keep saying that, the characters just became fodder for a body count. And that basically is the premise today. The classics as well as horror today had to get straight to the point when it came to the story. The plot was straightforward and simple. It identified the characters and kept these characters in focus through the film. The story worked on suspense and surprise. The jump scare was not even a focus. It was just part of the big picture, and sometimes was just subtle, just to keep tension. Now, Alfred Hitchcock said that seeing the bomb under the table prior to it blowing up had a lot more effect than just the bomb exploding itself out of nowhere. Suspense is the key. The classic slasher showed the bomb. The new slasher just shows a bunch of bombs blowing up throughout the movie, and it becomes exhausting. Okay, to break it down just a little bit further, the classics had creative production. The camera shots, music, and other productions such as color palette and filters created the mood. Now once again, the key to a slasher film is suspense, which creates the tension. It takes everything, the story, the characters, and the production elements to create that suspense. Now a great example of this once again is the original Halloween. It had almost all suspense and virtually no splat. However, many moviegoers stated that that movie was extremely bloody. Obviously, this was done due to those elements I just mentioned, and the audience was hooked, and still is. Just look at a horror convention today. The classic horror slasher films attract people of all ages big time, and a ton of those people who attend probably weren't even around when these things were made. The elements of production, story, and characters are the reasons why. Even if the story was full of Swiss cheese, there was enough production and character development there to make a good movie. You don't need a lot of all of it. You just need enough, and the classic brings you that. In today's slasher, you don't really see any clever production elements. The classics were filmed to create mood. The slashers of today are shot as any other standard movie would be, because the whole objective is body count. And the story is either too convoluted or just the complete opposite. The Friday the 13th reboot is a perfect example. I can watch the original Friday the 13th movie and still get that same freaky vibe I had when I first watched it. But to me, the production aspects, as well as the story and the characters in the 2009 reboot, make me feel I'm watching a boring, predictable antagonist whacking a bunch of generic characters who are basically one-dimensional assholes. The movie was just flat. Now, if you're looking for kills, great. It is right on point. But there was nothing in that movie to create horror. Hell, Rob Zombie's Halloween character development was so awful. Most people wanted all those characters dead, me included.
Bitch, I will crawl over there and I will skull fuck the shit out of you!
That lack of filmmaking basically ruined the semi-decent production on that film, which may have been its only saving grace. Now, as time went on and the zombie Halloween became more of a distant memory, the new slasher films started to rely on something else, the digital effect, which started to become more common than the awesome practical effects used by the classics. The theory behind it was to make the kills even cooler. However, most of these digital effects are cheap, leading to crap kills and a cheaper outcome. They actually take away from the movie. Once again, simply lazy movie making. And one more thing about production, something that simply cannot be overlooked is how the movie is scored. I think that a lot of movie makers don't take the score seriously, or they don't put in the effort to create a good one. The musical score is big in horror, and these classic slashers had the best. Check this out. Now think of recent slasher movies and even recent horror movies for that matter. How memorable is the music? And is it because the movie is somewhat new or just not memorable? You be the judge. This take could go on forever, so I'll have to cut out the examples of good slasher movies of today and crappy slashers of yesterday. There's a lot of both. But when you get right down to it, the classic slasher movie was a lot more original, the storyline and production were better, and the characters were more developed. All these elements combined made those movies of yesterday better than today. And it seems like today the filmmakers just don't have the time, the creativity, or the ambition to put out a great slasher. I'm sure there are a lot of creative minds out there that could put together a great movie. The horror genre is huge, with tons of fans of all ages. So you would think that this could happen. Of course, no one wants to pay a lot of money to create one of these movies, but no one ever did. It was the imaginative filmmaker who took that money they were given and made the most out of it, creating iconic movies with characters that were basically immortalized. Today, I just don't know if anyone has the drive to do it. Only time will tell if we'll get a new Michael, Jason, or even Freddy, or at least a movie we want to sit through and at best want to watch it again. I certainly hope so. Thank you for watching The Quick Take, and I'll see you soon.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch. I'm gonna cut that mask right off your face.